as you suggested in your testimony, and his answer was, there's simply not enough evidence. He was asked specifically, why didn't you try to recreate the circumstances, the force impact? That's what you do, sir. You're a biomechanic expert. Recreate it for us. And he said, there's not enough evidence. There is evidence, however, that Brian Higgins and Brian Albert were sparring at 34 Fairview. There is evidence, however, that that was just minutes, not hours, not days, minutes before John O'Keefe ultimately met his fate at 34 Fairview. There is evidence that Brian Higgins was love-struck, that he was jealous, that he was aggressively coaxing John O'Keefe out of the waterfall, that he was passively aggressively coaxing Miss Reed to engage with him rather than John O'Keefe. Again, there was not a single eyewitness to a collision. There was not even a single eyewitness to a backing event at 34 Fairview. The court will recall Jennifer McCabe testified that she basically watched the SUV the entirety of the time it was in front of the location at 34 Fairview with Miss Reed in the driver's seat. She saw it pull up once. She saw it pull up twice. She saw it pull up a third time. And then she saw it was gone. And at no time, did she ever see the car go in reverse. She certainly didn't see the SUV go in reverse at a high speed. And she darn sure didn't see the car go in reverse at a high speed and strike a pedestrian. Her focus was defined enough to see thin tire tracks in a dusting of snow, thin enough, I think the phrase was, to track a cat. That's how detailed she was in her observations, yet she did not see John O'Keefe hit by an SUV. She did not see John O'Keefe's body in the snow, in the yard, laying prostrate, a 216-pound, 6'1" man in the snow, directly in front of the SUV she was tracking the entire time. There are two other witnesses, Ryan Nagel, Heather Maxson. They both noted that John O'Keefe, not that they didn't see him, Your Honor, that John O'Keefe was not in the vehicle when they were behind him. The dome light was on. They could see inside the interior of the vehicle. Miss Reed was sitting there with her hands at 10 and 2, and the passenger seat, notably and markedly, was empty. He was not outside the vehicle. He wasn't standing. He wasn't sitting. He wasn't lying down. There's only one place he could be: inside the curtilage of the home, inside the house, or inside the garage. Not one witness that was inside the house, not one passerby, not one neighbor, not one plow driver ever saw John O'Keefe's body laying prostrate in the snow that morning. Not one. Not until Karen Reed found Mr. O'Keefe at about 6:03. And again, the Commonwealth's chief medical expert, Dr. Scortibello, their medical examiner, who's the only person that the court heard from or will ever hear from who actually investigated John O'Keefe's physical body, the only person to have physical access to John O'Keefe, testified he did not have any injuries consistent with being struck by a vehicle. But she did indicate that the injuries, as did the firefighters, the first responders, indicate that he had injuries consistent with a physical altercation. And certainly, as to counts 1 and 3, no evidence has been presented or proffered whatsoever by the Commonwealth that Karen Reed intended to run over and harm John O'Keefe in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Hearken to the video at C.F. McCarthy's. Hearken to the video at the Waterfall. Every witness confirmed what our eyes could see. That night, John O'Keefe, Karen Reed, were loving, caring, affectionate. There's absolutely no evidence that Karen Reed had an intent to harm John O'Keefe, or that she that after the fact, that she intended to leave him for dead, because there was no fact to be after. There was no collision in the first place. The Commonwealth's case, certainly on counts 1 and 3, taken separate from count 2, because of the mens rea associated with counts 1 and 3, fails miserably.
Good morning, everyone. It's me, lcadilac, aka OG Cadillac, aka Mother of the Decade, aka your favorite lawyer. What else am I aka? Third time braces wearer. Good morning and welcome. I'm sorry I'm late. I know we usually start at 10 a.m. The reason for it is I had a hearing this morning. I do have a hearing this afternoon as well. So I'm late. I didn't get to watch any Karen Reed. If you guys follow, you already know I just got back from New York City from seeing the Diddy trial. I leave tomorrow to go to Boston to get to the Reed trial. Okay, so I am very tired. And so the reason I had to come home between New York and Boston is because I have all these hearings today. I had work yesterday at an important event. Hi, Tall Glass. Good morning. Welcome. Okay, so we were just watching what is called a motion for directed verdict. I don't think we've ever discussed a motion for directed verdict, so let's talk about it. All right, the prosecution has a burden to prove each element of the crime that's required, because some of them are and or, but if it's an and, each element, if it's an or, then one of them, beyond a reasonable doubt. All right, the prosecution puts on their case and then they rest. That is the closing of their case. Now they do their closing later, but they put on the case and then they rest. Once the prosecution rests, every good defense attorney is going to ask for a directed verdict. Basically, this is asking the judge, hey, you just sat through all this witness and testimony. You know damn good and well they did not meet their burden of beyond a reasonable doubt. You need to do the verdict now. Don't make the jury sit through this crap. So, hey, Sunshine, good morning. So the defense, as we've been watching and we will watch here, the state rested yesterday, and now the defense is recapping everything the judge just saw and explaining to her how the state has not met their burden. Action Jackson is up. He's doing a fantastic job. Let's go back to listening. So I've had one directed verdict in my whole life, and it's probably the only one I'll ever get. These are not very common, okay? But you got to ask for them because you got to preserve the record.
The Commonwealth, at the end of the day, has presented their best case. They've done their best. Some would say they've done their worst. And their case has failed.
Yeah, the case failed, that's for sure.
No reasonable jury, harkening back to the standard under Rule 25, no reasonable jury could find Karen Reed guilty of count 1, count 2, or count 3. But taking count 1 and 3 aside, those are separate counts because of the mens rea required and the high burden that's required, even taken in the light most favorable to the Commonwealth. What evidence have they proven that Karen Reed intended to kill or harm John O'Keefe, or that she intended to leave him for dead?
Absolutely none. And really importantly, the medical examiner, the woman who was like, oh my God, she was like so nerdy. I loved it. She was one of those like high level, like so smart nerds. The defense asked her, is there any evidence this dude was hit by a car? No. Case closed. Then you have this these experts come up from this company they paid $300,000 and bought this vehicle for, and the expert completely tailored his entire testimony, his entire report to what the government said happened. He didn't look at anything else. I mean, come on, guys. But we all know Bev. We know Bev.
In the snow.
By now we know Bev. I wish I didn't.
The answer is none. Zero. No reasonable jury could find Karen Reed guilty. This case never should have been brought in the first place. There are reasons that I won't go into here. The court knows those reasons, or knows our position on those reasons. This was a vindictive prosecution, and I believe that the court is duty-bound pursuant to the precepts of Rule 25A, as well as the principles of justice, to dismiss all 3 counts, and certainly taking count 1 and count 3 aside, the court is duty-bound to dismiss those 2 counts.
The judge does not care what she's duty-bound to do. She was duty-bound to withdraw herself from the case, and she didn't do it, okay? So she does not care about her duties.
Thank you.
It was a very dereliction of duty at this point. All right, now the state gets to explain why they hit the reasonable doubt. See what Bev says.
Is denied as to all.
Duh.
And the other topic that we were discussing at sidebar, I don't need to hear argument on that right now, Mr.
Okay. So, of course, Bev denied. Of course, Bev denied this motion for directed verdict. Does he? Like, I never in a million years thought that she was gonna be like, oh yeah, go for it. No. But even though you know you're gonna lose the argument, you have to make the argument because you have to preserve the record. Okay? And Karen Reed's lawyers are great at record preservation. You know who is not great at record preservation? Diddy's lawyers. Brian Steele is, when he's the first chair, he's the head of whatever that is. Of course, Brian Steele is. But that, what's his name? Like the head guy, what was his name? I don't remember his name. He's not good. When I was there, he would like make his objections a question later, which is not how it works. If you guys want to know how it works, I made a video about all that. Please just go through my YouTube library. So I want to talk about the Diddy trial briefly while we wait for them to come back on Karen Reed. The state is going to begin, or I'm sorry, the defense is going to begin presenting their case. Now, as a reminder, everyone who sits in the courtroom is innocent. The burden is on the government to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that person is guilty. Understood? Okay. That being said, when I went to Diddy, I saw Capricorn Clark. That was very interesting testimony. However, when Capricorn testified about how she had again asked for a job in April of 24, after all these accusations came out, it sounded really fishy. It sounded like, well, what do you want a job for in exchange for good testimony or something? That's what I was interpreting it as. And I saw one of the jurors was intently taking notes, and then she heard about the job thing and just closed them and just went off into space. So it wasn't looking so good for the Diddy prosecution, and it was looking pretty charming for the defense until the day after I left. That stylist, I don't remember his name. Deontay something. That stylist put the first nail on the coffin, and then Mia, Diddy's employee, she was his employee, she's using a pseudonym. She nailed the second. Stylist nailed the head of the coffin. She nailed the foot, bro. She nailed the foot. With those two confirming everything Cassie had said, the prosecution has hit their elements on RICO. They've hit their elements on the Mann Act. I don't know if he's charged with coercion or if that's just part of the counts. Check. At this point, as it stands, where I sit, I cannot fathom a defense that you could put on to save that man. I can't even think of a defense. That's, well, luckily for him, I'm not his attorney, right? But like, What is your defense? I understand that some of the defense was like, oh, this was consensual. But those last two witnesses kind of struck that. The 29th birthday, Cassie had to do it on her 29th birthday. They asked the Dante Nash, thank you, Chairman. They asked the stylist, like, did she want it? And he was like, no. And Diddy was going to give her a surprise. And they were like, did you tell him he should or shouldn't? And he's like, I'm not going to tell that man what to do. He was very funny. He said, girl, I ain't doing that. He and Mia are two witnesses that are not going to gain anything. They had nothing to gain. They didn't try to gain. To come testify is not going to make or break either of those people. Okay. Mia, she went on to be Mike Myers' assistant. I believe she will have a career in the future. I don't think that's an issue. Dante Nash, he's got a great career. He's fine, right? So when you look at, and it's like Cassie's mom was pretty credible, but she's the mom of the victim. And you know, if I'm up there and you hurt and abused my baby that way, I have nothing. There's not going to be a kind word said at all, period. Like no kind words. So even that's kind of biased, right? But now you get these two people whose careers are not affected. Yeah, they maintain a friendship with Cassie, but that friendship has nothing to do with Diddy taking his employee. Like, he physically assaulted her with stuff down there. We can't use the word. That has nothing to do with Cassie. That has nothing to do with your loyalty. That has nothing to do with your friendship. That has to do with you and your body. So now, I didn't think that Diddy would testify. He has a really good defense team in terms of like telling him, no, you can't testify. However, when I was out at the trial, I met this lovely woman named Candace Kelly. She had been on Court TV, all this, and she covered the 2003 Diddy trial, the one that had to do with J-Lo. And she said he went on the stand and lied through his teeth. And then after what the prosecution put on this week, after I left, after Capricorn Clark, and they did a really good job of building. The prosecution did, and they nailed the timing. Cassie just had her baby, so they got her in, and they've done this beautiful layer cake, so to speak, and they've really just built their case. And I now believe Candace Clark said she thinks Diddy's going to testify. She saw him do it before. I'm now right there with her. I think he is his only defense at this point. Unless you could put on evidence that you weren't in, Turks and Caicos at that time, or you weren't at the Cannes Film Festival at that time, or whatever. I'm usually pro-defense, right? I really lean towards the defense because you're innocent until proven guilty, right? But, they proved the guilt. They proved the elements beyond a reasonable doubt at this point. I can't see that jury not locking him up for a substantial amount of time. So, put it there. All right, I just realized it's noon in Boston, so they're probably not going to come back with Karen Reed. So, instead, we're going to watch Alessi Scissorhands. I got that from Turtle Boy. Alessi Scissorhands just dissect and cross-examine this expert. Now, this dude works for the same engineering company as the guy that Alessi cross-examined and had no bachelor's degree. This dude's actually like a doctor of engineering or something. I don't know. He has the credentials. But he wrote his report using the information of the guy who didn't have the credentials, so there's an issue. And he pretty much designed his whole study around what the state told him. He didn't look at any other alternatives for the way this guy died. So, again, I am going to put it at 1.5 speed because I'm telling you, these people talk hella slow. I realized that that is the cadence of court. We do kind of talk slowly and clearly. So, it is boring. And I understand anyone who's like, no, being a lawyer is boring. I get it. It's not boring. It's a fun, exciting career, but I can understand how people would get bored. Here we go.
Topic: laser scans. Part of your analysis involved conducting laser scans of portions of 1 Meadows Avenue, the house of Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Correct.
Those laser scans were used, at least in part, to answer the question of whether the collision between Miss Reed's SUV and Mr. O'Keefe's Chevy Traverse at 1 Meadows at approximately 5:07 a.m. on January 29, 2022, caused the right rear taillight of the Lexus to break, correct?
Correct.
And in that analysis, inches literally matter, correct?
You want to get as accurate as possible.
And the reason why inches matter is because, and we're going to get to this, you tried, and you did it in your slide presentation on Direct, you tried to see whether the Lexus lined up with the Traverse such that there could be a break of the taillight. That was part of your analysis, correct?
So the main part of the photogrammetry was to determine the speeds and the angles and the degree of overlap on the vehicles. And then we also looked at the damage from the video, or actually it's just where the snow was knocked off the rear of the Chevy Traverse, and document the height of that.
You said the main part. I don't want to engage in semantics. I want to go to my question of, isn't part of the laser scan analysis to determine whether or not those two vehicles aligned sufficiently such that the Lexus could break, the taillight of the Lexus could break coming into contact with the Chevy Traverse? Wasn't that part of your analysis, at least in part?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey,
In that
Tawana.
analysis, inches literally matter, correct?
It can, depending on which way you're going inches.
So the ring...
Dude's like a measurement scientist. Talking about inches can matter. Millimeters matter, bro.
camera at 1 Meadows. You're familiar with that ring camera, right? At 1 Meadows? That ring camera at 1 Meadows was used as part of the laser scan process that you and your firm Aperture performed at 1 Meadows on October 2nd, 2024. Do I have the date correct?
I believe so, but like the videos were not literally used during the laser scans. We took the laser scans, the video, combined them together in a process called photogrammetry.
Okay, let's get this down to the fundamentals. You used, and that was my question, Your Honor, if we could publish the exhibit with regard to the ring camera.
Sure, what exhibit is it?
Yeah, I've got my
The laser scanners are together used in the photogrammetry. The camera and the laser scans are not used necessarily with each other.
Was that ring camera used for any part of your work?
Absolutely, the photogrammetry.
I just need to be able to finish my question, sir. Was that ring camera used for any part of your work at 1 Meadows on October 2nd, 2024?
Yes.
And it was used for what purpose?
In the photogrammetric process, to establish the position and dimensions of various things in the video, so then we could go back and overlay the vehicles and track the tracks in the snow, as well as look at the damage to the vehicles.
Right. So this was used to, as a basis, not the only one, to establish dimensions of the other work that was done in analysis at 1 Meadows, correct?
Correct.
You can take that down, Mr. Wolf. You know that the ring camera at 1 Meadows, in existence when Aperture did the work on October 2nd, 2024, was different than the ring camera that was in existence on January 29th of 2022, the date where you went through to see if those two vehicles aligned. Is that correct? The cameras are different.
That is correct.
And you know that the cameras are different, and you knew that as part of your analysis, correct?
Correct.
Did you document the differences between the two cameras as part of any work performed at 1 Meadows?
Yes.
And did you measure any differences there might have been between the location of the newer ring camera from the older one that was in existence on January 29th of 2022?
No. What you did is you...
Okay, guys. I am not a mathlete by any I can't calendar. Calendar's like math to me. I'm not real good at adding. I am good at calculating my hourly rate, but I'm sorry. It just seems so obvious. Let me put this forward too. I've never measured anything accurately in my entire life. Okay, like geometry and like that kind of stuff is past my abilities. It's outside the scope of my brain's functioning. All right. What? You had one camera and now you have a new camera and you don't like take into account, you don't measure. You're trying to put someone in jail and you didn't. Oh my God. You guys, this is all the fault of No Child Left Behind. I am sure of it. I just blame everything on No Child Left Behind. Like, are you kidding me? I got like a C in geometry. Okay. And even I am like, it's a new camera. We should probably figure out where the old one was before we do these calculations. Oh my God. Oh my God. We're gonna go back, and while we're back, I'm going to take a nature break. I just these
Use
people.
the current Ring camera in conjunction with the old Ring camera, and with the laser scans, we're able to again map the points onto the scene. That's why I showed you the report from the photogrammetry software that reported our error.
Sir, my question was just measurement, not your process.
Oh.
Did you measure the difference
I don't believe
between
so.
where the old camera was and where the new camera was?
No, it was angled slightly more to the right though.
How would you know that if you were not retained on January 29th of 2022? How would you know where the original
How would you know
angles
where the
were?
fuck it was?
Because when you look at the first camera, the one on January 22nd, it's here. The new one is slightly over to the right.
That's an eyeball approximation analysis. That's not a measurement.
We're gonna put a lady in jail behind an eyeball measurement analysis.
Correct?
Well, I don't know that we actually measured it, but we accounted for it and corrected for it. But you can see, for example, what the original one shows, for example, to the left-hand side, compared to what the new one shows to the left-hand side, and it's angled more to the right.
Sir, you have experience with Ring cameras, correct?
I do.
And I think a lot of members of the public have experience with Ring cameras. You can move just the camera portion ever so slightly and change significantly the angle of the camera, can't you, what it captures? Just a small turn,
Potentially.
right? Even a millimeter turn can make a change. A 2 millimeter, a 1 inch can make a significant change with regard to what the camera captures, correct?
Could, sure.
So, did you measure whether the newer camera that was present on October 2nd, 2024 was installed to the left? And I'm talking measure. To the right, to the top or the bottom, relative to the camera that was there on January 29th of 2022.
So we solved for the camera
I'm
position.
asking if you measured, sir.
Oh, no, didn't measure.
So let's talk about some other differences with regard to cameras and Ring cameras. Different Ring cameras can have different levels of distortion, correct?
Potentially.
Cameras, well, are you saying that all Ring cameras have the same level of distortion?
No, but again, they're mass produced, so you could have some that have the same exact distortion. You could have some that have different.
And you don't know the comparative distortion between what I'm just going to now refer to as the old Ring camera that was there January 29, 2022, and the camera that you saw on October 2024, which I'll refer to the new camera. You don't know the difference in the distortion between those cameras as you sit here today, do you?
So we know enough information that if the distortions had been different, our errors would have been too high. And so the fact that our errors are within acceptable, what's called an RMS error, we know that the distortions are similar enough to give us accurate measurements.
Sir, that is speculation. That is not data. That is not a measurement. You didn't measure the distortion, sir, did you? If the cameras, you didn't have the old camera to do it.
We didn't, but we had images from the old camera, and then when we get images from the new camera and solve those camera properties and then overlay data from the old images to the new images with the point clouds, if that distortion is too great, we will have too high of errors in our project, which is why I showed the error report from the photogrammetry process to show that we have checked for that and documented that our errors are in acceptable range so that we have confidence in our results.
You do not have information from the manufacturer of Ring. You didn't present it, and you don't have it, as to what is the acceptable level of distortion for the analysis that you did, do you, sir?
The
You have that from Ring.
I don't have it from Ring, but I don't need it from Ring.
So now let's go to, if cameras have different levels of distortion, that would change the analysis in reconciling the difference between their angles. That's a pretty straightforward proposition, sir, wouldn't it?
So It depends on how much difference it is, but we have accounted for that.
With which model of the Ring camera was present at One Meadows on January 29, 2022? Which model?
I don't know. I'd have to go look through the data.
Do you believe I'm not going to take up the time to have you look, but do you really believe you've got the model of the Ring camera that was in existence on January 29th of 2022?
I don't know. I
You
need to
didn't
look
present
through
it in your direct testimony, did you, sir?
I did not.
So do you have the model of the Ring camera that was present at One Meadows on October 2nd, 2024?
No.
So you don't have even the model for either one of them?
No, but we have videos from both of them and scans of the scene.
So now let's talk about another aspect of Ring cameras. They have mechanisms, as I was talking about earlier, that allow the user to adjust the camera angle, correct?
Correct.
And do you know whether there was a difference in the camera angle between the two cameras?
Yes, as we already discussed, there was a slight difference in the
But
angle.
you don't have a measurement of that, right, sir?
Correct.
Okay.
But we accounted for it.
So wouldn't a difference in models of Ring cameras be relevant at all to your analysis of trying to reconcile any differences between them?
So if you have video from both of them, and you have laser scans with three-dimensional geometry of the scene, you can go in, and it's called a reverse camera analysis, and solve for the distortion properties. The scans give you the real-world dimensions. So once you know the real-world dimensions, you can then go in, and then solve for the camera lens properties based upon the real-world distortions. So for example, if there's a little bit of bending at the end, the laser scan data will show that, and you can correct for that, knowing information about the laser scanner.
I'll
or
ask
the
the
laser
question.
scan data.
I'm sorry, I thought you finished, sir. I'm going to ask the question again because it's a narrow question. Wouldn't knowing the difference in the models be relevant? That's all I'm asking. Wouldn't it be relevant to your analysis of reconciling the differences to them? Wouldn't
No.
it be relevant?
No.
So you think the different models are irrelevant to any process you occasioned at one? It's irrelevant.
So the analysis of the video itself is more important than the models?
I'm not asking if it's more important. I'm just asking, would it be relevant?
No, I don't believe it'd be relevant.
No.
So you're going to analyze some video footage, and you're a freaking engineer, and you want to recreate the footage, but it's a new camera, and you don't look up the old model number? I literally feel sick, y'all. Like, I feel physically ill. What? What? Good morning, Jiggy. Good morning, Hippieista. Good morning, y'all ain't right. God grant me the strength to accept the things I cannot change. Jesus H. You don't measure the distance? You don't check what the old model was? You don't even try to find an old model to recreate that? It literally, I feel ill. Like, I literally feel sick from this. This is our government that we fund and support through our tax dollars, through our labor, is doing this shit to people every day. Literally, this kind of crap happens every day. The government pays $300,000 to some quack engineer who doesn't even take measurements so they could put you in jail? Why? You don't even know what happened. You didn't even... oh, my God. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. It literally makes me so mad. If I pay $300,000 for an expert, I expect measurements. It's like Yella Beezy. He spent $2 million for an assassin, and the dude did it in the middle of the highway in broad daylight. Like, no. When you pay $2 million, you pay for James Bond. Okay? This guy, I'm paying you $300,000, and you don't even measure? You don't even look up the old model number? Like, again, guys, like science, math, just go in one ear and out the other. They're not my thing. But even I know to go find the original type camera. Oh my God. I haven't even done a science class since like 8th grade, dude. Well, no, technically I had to do them in high school, but like that was the last time.
Now let's go to another.
I haven't even measured. I can't even measure. And I know you need to, okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm working myself up. Oh no, he guesstimated using his eyes, Sunshine. You know what my eyes guesstimate? Sometimes in February, if you go look up Dallas average temperature in February, all right, my eyes, I will look outside, I will see the sun, and I will say, oh, it must be nice today. Then I walk out and it's 22 degrees. So my eyes cannot actually measure the temperature. I thought my daughter had reached like 5'2". We got her measured. Turns out she's 4'11". So you know what my eyes can't do? Measure things. That's why you have a fucking yardstick? That's what a ruler is for? Like, I swear to God, guys. It's called measuring tape. You're an engineer and you're eyeballing it? Fuck
Other
outta here.
aspect of the cameras.
Don't have nobody eyeball it when they testify against me.
Are key parameters in a camera that the software needs to know focal length?
It is.
Is imaging size something that
How are you going to know the focal length if you don't have the old camera? If you never even looked up the model number?
is an important parameter in a camera?
Yes.
Is our sampling characteristics an important parameter in cameras?
Can be.
Is the principal point, you understand that concept, sir? Is that an important parameter in a camera?
Define how you're using principal point.
Sure. A principal point of an image is the point where a camera's direct line of sight, called, as you may know, the optical axis, intersects the image plane. Does that
Gotcha,
sound
yes.
familiar?
Mm-hmm.
So, isn't that the image's mathematical center, the principal point?
More or less, yes.
And
Bro is hired to do math and does not determine the mathematical center. It has the word math in it, bro. Like, what? What? I want the citizens of the state of Massachusetts, I want their money back for them. I want their money back for them.
And for high accuracy photogrammetric work, it's important to know if the lens is mounted centered over the image sensor due to the small manufacturing variances, correct?
Could be important.
And if the principal point is the center of the image.
Okay.
That's relevant. So doesn't that...
I seriously feel like I'm a barf. All right, let's skip ahead a little so that maybe my stomach will stop churning. Sunshine, I do tell her she is the size of many grown adults, my daughter. And she's like, oh my God, like she hates it when I say that. But I see an adult shorter than her. She doesn't want to be that short, but I keep telling her men love short girls. Being short is totally a bonus. All right, let's do this.
Yes. Yeah.
Does that slide that's part of your presentation depict a view from the top of the Lexus on the right and the Chevy Traverse on the left?
Correct.
And is that depicting contact between the two vehicles?
It is.
Now let's zero in a closer look, and that is a contact point, am I
With the
correct?
tail
Correct.
light.
I mean, there's multiple points. There's
Multiple
more than one.
points, but it shows more clearly the contact between
Correct.
the two vehicles. Now if we could
Ridiculous. My daughter is 12. She'll be 13 in October. 12 going on 30, bro.
And all the other slides, we're trying to show the angle of contact, but because it's two-dimensional image, you're losing some perspective. For example, here you're seeing the chrome piece on Mr. O'Keefe's Chevrolet, which is on the right. You're seeing it obviously behind where the Lexus is. So we were trying.
Now, I kind of see where it would hit the freaking light and break it. That's what I see. I don't know about y'all. Oh, wait. Right there? This case is a crock.
we're going to go to those next slides. So just to be clear, You're saying that that depiction does not show any contact between the taillight of the Lexus and the Chevy Traverse.
So the upper taillight, just to be clear, because the lower taillight is much closer.
Well, it's not only much closer, it's in contact, isn't it, sir?
It's very close. It's probably within an inch of being in contact.
Oh, so you
Oh, now you can measure? Now you know how to measure?
you say that even the lower part of the taillight is not making contact?
So, again, maybe there's a photo we could show or a scan. That is on the rear of the vehicle, and it contacts on the corner, which is just around, so maybe like an inch or so in front of it on the corner.
I'm just going with what you presented in your slide
Well, let's go to the next
presentation.
slides, and then
Sir,
we can
I
see
will
it.
determine which slides we go to on my questioning.
I'm just hoping
So
to
now
answer
let's go to, Mr. Wolf, the next slide
There we go.
in your presentation. My question is zeroing in. Are you saying that that slide does not show contact between the tail light of Ms. Reed's Lexus and any part of the Chevy Traverse?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly what it shows. You can see a little better here. Again, we tried all these different angles, which is why all these slides are in there. But you can see some of the geometry of the light. This structure, and again, remember I said the Chevy kind of curves in as it goes up a little bit?
Let's go to the next slide. 40. 40, yes, please. Is it working? 41, Your Honor.
That's Exhibit 41?
Where the fuck is that plate from? It has a Texas boot. These are not our plates. Our plates are like the square, more like square than rectangle. What is that?
No, I have a question. This is not my slides.
This case just irks me, bro. Yesterday? Or not yesterday, a few days ago.
Best
He was on
solution.
Direct. He couldn't even say spoiler. He was like the wing. He was calling it a wing. It's a spoiler, and he called it a wing. I was like, ew. Like, what? Okay. What's going on? How come prosecution is asking someone questions? Okay, this is live today. This doesn't make sense. Prosecution's asking someone something?
I'll allow it. Is that what you're doing?
Is that your opinion?
No, sir.
Are
Oh,
you
it
offering an
must be
opinion
for
that
Dyer.
Ms. Reed's Lexus never got in a collision before?
The way I stated it was none of the prior events were triggered by a collision.
What I'm
Okay, so this looks like Dyer. So they're proving up their expert. Them being defense.
He never spoke throughout the 3 days at all about what kind of data he expected from the card or would be on the card or could be. He made no mention of the data.
No, he said to you, but given your expertise, did it ever dawn on you the significance or importance of this SD card that was sitting in plain sight?
Sustained. You can ask.
Did it ever dawn on you that Ms. Burgess was recovering this information at the time, that there was something important or significant about it?
At the time, I thought it was a possibility. If you reference the initial work, a number of different memory components were identified in this infotainment. There isn't a singular memory chip. So if we're looking for data, it could be in any of them. So we found a new source of data storage, and there could be something there, there could be nothing there. It was unknown to me.
But it turned out there was.
There was.
Now, when you were watching Mr. Burgess work as an expert, if you felt like there was something inappropriate or he had some great oversight, you could write a report about that, couldn't you?
I could.
Did you ever write any report in this case?
No.
So you never wrote a report for your preparation of coming in and your data in the PowerPoint presentation, right?
Correct.
You never wrote a report regarding any of your observations of Mr. Burgess.
Correct.
You said that he didn't say anything.
Just so you know, some jurisdictions require expert reports, some do not. So sometimes they don't have to write a report. It's not required.
Spoke to you quite a bit during the process, didn't he?
He did.
He showed you what he was doing.
He did.
He explained to you what he was doing.
He explained the process. I think you had asked me earlier about whether he explained the data, and he didn't.
He demonstrated great proficiency, wouldn't you say?
He ended up with a successful acquisition of the card at the end of the process.
That was a very nice way of saying no, he was not greatly proficient. Did you see him look around for that? He's like, hold on, how do I not be a dick? I have to look around for that too. I'm like, dear Jesus, help me not be a dick. I really do. I have to look to heaven for the assistance because, man, there's a great song by Dennis Leary. It's
When
it's
you
called
are
Asshole. He goes, I'm an asshole, Leo, Leo, ASSHOLE. That's me, bro. Okay. I would sit and watch this voir dire with you and the presentation of evidence, but I am exhausted and I need to get a nap before I go to my next hearing because I'm so flippin' tired, dude. I don't usually nap in the day, but I'm out here going for you guys. Oh, by the way, about Karen Reed, I'm not going to be able to get in. Like, the press that has press passes, which is not me, they already denied mine, they're on a lottery, so I'm not going to make it in. But here's my plan. I'm going to go to 34 Fairview. I'm going to go to, the Waterfall. I'm going to go to CF McCarthy's. Okay? I'm going to go to those 3 places, take video, do that kind of stuff. I am also going to go to the trial, outside the trial while people are watching it, and I'm going to try to interview them. See maybe if some people will talk to me, some of the people who are staying out there and really supporting Karen. And yes, I'll be wearing pink because I don't think she did it. Jiggy, I will be back on the East Coast tomorrow, and then I'm coming back to the Mid Coast on Wednesday, and then I'm leaving for South America in July. I'll be gone for a whole month. Maybe I'll do my live stream in Spanish. That's why I'm going, because I need to hablo. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your likes, your subscribes, your cash apps, all the good stuff. I really appreciate all of you, all of my members. I promise I will get you more content. I know I keep saying that, but it is my super busy season, and we have a lot of trials going on. I'm going to get there, I promise. Okay, I'm a woman of my word. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. Sometimes it takes a year. Sometimes it takes 4. But it happens, okay? All right, thank you all for being here, and I will see you next week. Oh, and I'll also see you during the week while I'm at the Karen Reed trial.